From the earliest days of modern economics, economists have studied trade, whether between individuals or countries. The basic economics of trade is one of the parts of the discipline upon which economists tend to agree. Let's start with a very simple model of trade. Suppose I have an apple and you have an orange. It turns out that I don't like this apple as much as I would like an orange, and it just so happens that you don't like your orange as much as you would like an apple. Suppose that I would be willing to pay up to, say, $1 for my apple, but up to $2 for your orange. Also suppose that you would be willing to pay up to, say, $4 for my apple, and up to $2 for your orange. This could be a tragedy of sorts. Each of us has the thing we want least, while the other person has the thing that we want most. But wait, what if we were to trade with each other? If I give you the apple and you give me the orange, what happens? I've gone from having something I valued at $1 to having something I value at $2. That's $1 of value created. You've gone from having something you valued at $2 to something you valued at $4. That's $2 of value created. Something wonderful has happened. We are both better off. I've gained $1 in value and you've gained $2 in value. Our total gain is $3 in value. This leads us to an important conclusion. Anytime two people voluntarily exchange with one another, they are each made better off. They both end up happier than they started. This is a powerful argument for allowing people to trade with each other. It makes them happier. Insofar as one cares about people being happy, one should support allowing people to trade with each other. One can quibble with bits of this argument. For example, some will argue that people can't really put dollar values on things so easily. That's true, but making that part of the story more realistic doesn't change the conclusion. One could also argue that two people trading might have harmful effects on some third party, and if these effects are large enough, the trade might not really be value increasing. For example, if I pay you to shoot someone, you and I might be happier, but the unhappiness of the guy getting shot is probably much greater than our gain. Effects on third parties are possible, and we'll return to them in a much later video, but you should treat this as an exception, not the rule. There's another equally powerful argument for trade, but it is easier to understand the argument with the help of a simple model known as the Production Possibilities Frontier. Imagine a country in which there are only two goods to consume: oranges and cell phones. Let's put these two things on a graph. The vertical axis represents the amount of oranges produced by our imaginary country in 1 month, and the horizontal axis, the amount of cell phones produced in our imaginary country in 1 month. Let's put some numbers on the axes. Maybe they represent millions of oranges and millions of cell phones. Let's call our fictional country Orangutan. Orangutan has some choices to make. Suppose that if they put all their resources into producing oranges, they can produce up to 4 units of oranges. If they put all their resources into producing cell phones, however, they can produce up to 2 units of cell phones. But Orangutan isn't just stuck with these two options. Orangutan could also produce some of each good. That is, if they're producing all oranges, they could give up 2 units of oranges and get 1 unit of cell phones. As they continue to give up oranges and get cell phones, the line grows until it touches both axes. This line is called a Production Possibilities Frontier, or PPF. The Production Possibilities Frontier shows us all the combinations of orange juice and cell phones that can be produced. The citizens of Orangutan could choose to produce at a point inside the PPF. We say that this point is inefficient, however, because Orangutan could have more of both goods at no cost. That is, there's no reason to produce inside the PPF. It's not as though doing so gives the people in Orangutan more time to relax, or read a book, or go to a movie. In our imaginary world, there are only 2 things to consume: orange juice and cell phones. There is no leisure. There are no books. There are no movies. Producing inside the PPF makes no sense. The citizens of Orangutan would be happier producing on the line. But why stop at the line? If more is better, why not produce outside the PPF? A point like this one is not feasible. Sure, orangutan would love to have more of everything, but they have limited resources, and their current technology does not allow them to produce at this point. That's why the PPF is a frontier. It's the edge of what is possible. But what if they discovered more resources, or new technology allowed them to make better use of the resources they already have? The production possibility frontier might shift or move. Suppose they become better able to produce everything, for example. The improvement in technology causes the PPF to move away from the origin. Now, our fictional country can produce more of both OJ and cell phones. In fact, the PPF has moved so much that the point that was previously impossible has become possible. The same thing would happen if orangutan became able to take advantage of new resources, or if anything else happened to increase their ability to produce. It is also possible for production improvements to favor one good more than another. For example, suppose orangutan discovered an island on which the soil was especially good for growing oranges. Notice that the PPF rotates, with the maximum amount of orange juice increasing, but the maximum amount of cell phones not changing. We've already seen one argument for trade. When people voluntarily exchange with each other, they are better off. Now that we know what a production possibility frontier is, we can use it to see another argument for trade. Let's go back to orangutan's original PPF. Remember, they can produce up to 4 units of orange juice and up to 2 units of cell phones, and at various points in between. But let's suppose there's another country. Let's call it Cellphonelandia. Cellphonelandia is bigger than orangutan. They can make more orange juice than orangutan, and they can make more cell phones. We say that Cellphonelandia has an absolute advantage in both orange juice and cell phones. That means it can make more of them. You might be tempted to think that this means Cellphonelandia wouldn't benefit from trading with orangutan. After all, they can make more of everything. But you'd be wrong. To see why, we need to look at the two countries' opportunity costs of producing, and then see what happens if they specialize and trade. Recall from a couple videos back that opportunity costs are what we give up to get something. Let's think about orangutan's opportunity costs. Suppose orangutan has nothing but orange juice and gives it all up to produce cell phones. They would have 2 cell phones at a cost of 4 orange juice. That is, the opportunity cost of producing 2 cell phones is 4 orange juice. Let's simplify this ratio. 1 cell phone has an opportunity cost of 2 orange juice. We could also find the opportunity cost of making orange juice. Suppose orangutan is making nothing but cell phones and decides to give up the cell phones to produce orange juice instead. They would get 4 orange juice at an opportunity cost of 2 cell phones. That is, the opportunity cost of producing 4 orange juice is 2 cell phones. Again, let's simplify the ratio. 1 orange juice has an opportunity cost of 1/2 of a cell phone. So now we have the opportunity cost for orangutan. 1 cell phone costs 2 orange juice, or 1 orange juice costs 1/2 of a cell phone. Let's do the same for Cellphonelandia. Suppose Cellphonelandia is making nothing but orange juice and gives it all up to produce cell phones. They get 8 cell phones at an opportunity cost of 6 orange juice. That is, the opportunity cost of producing 8 cell phones is 6 orange juice. Reducing the ratio, we find that producing 1 cell phone costs 3/4 of an orange juice. Suppose Cellphonelandia is making nothing but cell phones and gives them up to produce orange juice. They get 6 orange juice at an opportunity cost of 8 cell phones. That is, the opportunity cost of producing 6 orange juice is 8 cell phones. Reducing the ratio, we find that producing 1 orange juice costs 4/3 of a cell phone. Now we know the trade-offs faced by each country. We know exactly how much of each good each country gives up when they choose to produce more of the other good. Note that for each country, the opportunity cost of one good is the reciprocal of the opportunity cost of the other good. Also note that I've laid out the opportunity costs so that it's easy to compare the two countries. Let's see who has the lowest opportunity costs of producing each good, starting with cell phones. To produce 1 cell phone, orangutan must give up 2 orange juice. Cellphonelandia must give up 3/4 of an orange juice to produce a cell phone. Who has the lowest opportunity cost of making a cell phone? That is, who gives up the least to make a cell phone? Cellphonelandia gives up less orange juice because 3/4 is less than 2. Cellphonelandia has the lowest opportunity cost of making cell phones. What about orange juice? Let's look at the next row of opportunity costs. To produce 1 unit of orange juice, Orangutan must give up half a cell phone. Cellphonelandia must give up 4/3 of a cell phone to produce a unit of orange juice. Orangutan gives up fewer cell phones because 1/2 is less than 4/3. Orangutan has the lowest opportunity cost of making orange juice. When a country has the lowest opportunity cost of doing something, we say that they have a comparative advantage. In our example, Orangutan has the comparative advantage in orange juice, and Cellphonelandia has the comparative advantage in cell phones. Now you see why I gave them the names that I did. Note that even though Cellphonelandia has an absolute advantage in both orange juice and cell phones, it can't have a comparative advantage in both. Unless their production possibility frontiers have exactly the same slope, one country must have a comparative advantage in one good, and the other country will have the comparative advantage in the other good. Now suppose that our two imaginary countries try something new. They each specialize in producing the good in which they have the comparative advantage, and then they trade with each other. Specialization means that Orangutan makes orange juice, nothing but orange juice. Similarly, Cellphonelandia makes cell phones, nothing but cell phones. Then they trade. But we have a problem. On what terms do they trade? Suppose Orangutan offers Cellphonelandia some orange juice. How many cell phones does Orangutan get in exchange? To answer this question, we need to look again at the opportunity costs. Pick a pair of opportunity costs, either cell phones to orange juice or orange juice to cell phones. Let's suppose we go with cell phones to orange juice. We need to pick a ratio between these two ratios. That is, we need something between 1:2 and 1:3/4. Why do we need to pick something between their ratios? Well, just wait and see. We'll get back to that later. For now, just go with it. We have a lot of choices. The most obvious is 1:1. This would mean that every time Orangutan offers Cellphonelandia 1 orange juice, Cellphonelandia pays 1 cell phone in return. That's the simplest option. But we have others. For example, we could also use 1 cell phone to 1.5 orange juice, or 1 cell phone to 0.99 orange juice, or 1 cell phone to 1.293058295.7 orange juice. All of those would work because they are all between 1:2 and 1:3/4. But let's keep things simple, right? Let's stick with 1 cell phone for 1 orange juice. What have we found so far? We've found that Orangutan has a comparative advantage in orange juice, and that's what they're going to make. We've found that Cellphonelandia has a comparative advantage in cell phones, and that's what they are going to make. We have also found that 1 cell phone for each orange juice will work as terms of trade. So, what happens if they trade? Start with Orangutan. They're making all orange juice, so they start here. They offer to give up 1 orange juice to Cellphonelandia. Cellphonelandia gives them a cell phone in exchange for the orange juice. Wait a second, what just happened? Look where they are. Orangutan is now consuming at a point outside their production possibilities frontier. But didn't I say that was impossible? How can this be happening? Suppose they give up another unit of orange juice. They get another unit of cell phones. They're even further beyond their PPF. Surely if Orangutan is so much better off after trading, Cellphonelandia must be worse off, right? Wrong. Cellphonelandia gave up a unit of cell phones and received a unit of orange juice in return. Holy cow, look at that. They're outside their PPF too. What about the second trade? They gave up another cell phone and got another orange juice. They're still outside their PPF. What in the world is going on here? Is this some kind of black magic? This is, in fact, argument number 2 for trade, the law of comparative advantage. The law of comparative advantage says that if 2 entities specialize in doing what they're best at doing and then trade, they'll both be better off. Why does this work? It works because the countries stop wasting resources producing things that they are bad at producing. This results in more stuff being created, more orange juice and cell phones. So when they go to trade with each other, they can consume amounts that otherwise would be impossible. This discovery was made a couple centuries ago by a genius named David Ricardo. I'd love to talk more about him, but this video will be long enough as it is. Here's another way to think about it. Think about trade with the other country as a form of new technology that expands the production possibility frontier. Instead of having a fancy new machine that allows Orangutan to get more cell phones, they have a friendly neighbor instead. Now you can see why I picked terms of trade that were between the two countries' opportunity costs. If I hadn't done that, we would get lines here that were inside or on the production possibility frontiers, rather than outside them. In the real world, terms of trade are determined by prices, which are determined by supply and demand. But that stuff will have to wait for another video. So here's the punchline. Two powerful arguments for trade. First, when two people trade voluntarily with each other, they are both better off, or else they wouldn't have traded. That first argument for trade takes the amount of stuff as given. Our second argument for trade points out that the amount of stuff we have to exchange with each other isn't a constant. If we specialize and then trade, we'll be even happier because more stuff is produced. Notice that argument 2 says when two entities specialize. It says that because this argument applies not only to countries, but also to states, counties, individuals, firms, anyone who trades with anyone else. Everyone can benefit from specializing and then trading with others. This also suggests something to think about for those who are opposed to trade between countries. If trade between countries is bad, then shouldn't trade between states or counties or whatever also be bad? There is no economic difference. This leaves us with a puzzle, though. Why isn't specialization complete? That is, why do countries in the real world make several different things rather than each making just one thing? After all, the US doesn't just make microchips, and Japan doesn't just make cars. Well, it turns out I've been oversimplifying. In the real world, a production possibility frontier probably isn't straight. It's curved. When the PPF was a straight line, the opportunity cost of making a bit more of something was constant. That is, making one more cell phone always meant giving up 3/4 of an orange juice. Here, that's not true. The amount of orange juice given up changes as we move along the PPF. For example, suppose Cell Phone Landia is making nothing but orange juice and decides it wants 1 unit of cell phones. It gives up very little orange juice to get this unit of cell phones. What if it wants another cell phone? It has to give up a bit more orange juice to get that additional cell phone. It's hard to tell what's happening to the cost of cell phones so far, so let's do it again. And again. And again. Just a couple more cell phones to go. Okay, that's enough. What we've been doing is adding cell phones and looking at what we give up in orange juice. At first, we give up very little. The amount we're giving up doesn't seem to change much as we get more cell phones. But right about here, if you're looking closely, you'll notice something happening to the opportunity costs of getting one more unit of cell phones. It's getting bigger. The amount of orange juice Cell Phone Landia is giving up to get one more cell phone is getting larger. And it keeps getting larger and larger until eventually getting one more cell phone means giving up a really large amount of orange juice. Why is this happening and what does it mean? This phenomenon is increasing marginal opportunity cost. Getting more cell phones means giving up larger and larger amounts of orange juice. Why do they have to give up larger and larger amounts of orange juice to get one more cell phone? Because resources are specialized. When they're making all orange juice, they're using all their resources for it, including some that are not good at making orange juice. As they shift toward cell phones, the first resources to go into cell phone production are those that are really best for making cell phones. As they continue to shift toward making more cell phones, resources continue to shift into producing cell phones. As this continues, however, resources start to move into cell phones that are not really all that great at making cell phones. As a result, we give up a lot of orange juice. That is, it takes a lot of these resources that are crummy at making cell phones to make a cell phone. Shifting a lot of orange juice resources into cell phones means giving up a lot of orange juice. As a result of this, in the real world, specialization is not complete. An entire country making nothing but cell phones simply doesn't happen, because they would be giving up production of too much other stuff. Unfortunately, building a model of this partial specialization is beyond the scope of an introductory course. Fortunately, aside from incomplete specialization, it doesn't change the result much. Both countries are still better off with some specialization and trade. There's a lot more to say about trade, and the common misconceptions that people have about it, but this video is already too long. Suffice it to say that economists in general are very much in favor of free trade, and very much opposed to policies that would restrict trade. In the next video, I'll introduce demand, the first part of the most important model you will ever study, supply and demand.